energy you surround yourself with, that is also your life. I was talking with somebody just very recently, and he was saying, I want to surround myself with people that are, with successful people. And this is a younger person. And it was so cool, because I'm thinking, okay, is this guy giving me like money-driven, money? And no, he wanted to find, basically what he was saying was, in his own way, I want to surround myself with people that are driven. Does that make sense? Yes. How many of you, this is your first time here to the Florida Power Team, by show of hands? Wow! Congratulations.
Hey.
Wait, how many of you were here for the CPR class downstairs and came up because you heard the music? Okay, good, okay. I feel validated. No, the point being is that how many of you would like to have this type of environment in your everyday life? Great, it's up to you to create it. Because if you stay around people that drag you down, that suck, how many of you, you walk by somebody and you all know who they are in our lives, or you walk by them and you hear this, as you walk by, and you can feel this energy, shall we say, suck, and you get depleted after talking with them. How many of you ever had that happen before? Like, you'd rather have a root canal to the eye socket and have the conversation. And I say this though, but you chose to. How many of you walk by that person and you know what's going to happen, but you still do it anyways, and then you just use a language pattern and you bitch about it afterwards. They always do this, but you chose to walk down that route. I'm not just talking about a route with people. I'm talking about a route in life. As TJ was talking about earlier, that if you're doing a job, I asked the same question. How many of you, and if your boss is in the room, you may want to really reconsider your answer. How many of you, if it all paid the same, if you were a garbage attendant or if you were the Fortune 100 CEO, how many of you, if it all paid the same, you would be doing something different than what you're doing right now? By show of hands, honest people only. Great. Back to our New York. This is where you really want to reconsider what you're doing. And I say this because when I first started out, and some of you may not know my illustrious history, I started out in this amazing career being fired from Sizzler because I was not salad bar team lead material. They tore it down, which really sucks. I would have always loved to have gone back, but now it's a Jiffy Lube. But I don't even live in that city anymore, but I want to go back to that corner because I remember that. I was living in a studio in Bakersfield, California. Anyone from Bakersfield, California? Of course not. No. And have you ever been through Bakersfield, California?
Yeah.
Sorry. Now, I was sleeping on the floor in a little studio that was about 10 feet by 11 feet. No bed, that's why this ribcage is flat. And through the air wall, I heard I heard everything coming through that wall. I didn't have a TV, so I got to listen to their TV. I heard every night, oh, baby, baby, baby. I mean, I met my neighbors. I'm like, oh, hi, man, you must be baby. I'm the guy you guys keep up that story. And I also heard the stupid infomercial coming through. It was right after the mop and before the Flowbee, but after, I think it was before the spray-on hair guy, if he's still around. And it was this, big guy named whom, do you think? Tony Robbins. You want to change your life, you want to do whatever. And I'm there, I was like, can you just shut the heck up? It's like, I'm trying to sleep here. Of course, I'm ripping them to shreds like you big banana-fingered barn door toothed idiot. I was tearing them down because it was easier to tear them down than to understand them. How many of us may have judged business clients, possible clients, family members, our kids, our teachers? How many of us do you think may have judged other people right off the bat so we don't have to worry about what they think of us? We've already torn them down. How many of you know other people that you've never do that? But how many of you know other people that have done that? Turn your neighbor and go, you too? Yeah. I say this because at that stage, I was going, essentially, life was not great, and I had planned an exit, and it was not a corporate exit strategy, it was a life exit strategy. And then he said something. He said, doing the same thing over and over again, and many of you know where I'm going, is the definition of expecting a different result, which of course I was the definition of what? Insanity. So I got pissed, which is not the Australian version of drunk. No, I got upset. More specifically, I got leverage. Please put this in your notes. If you're not getting the results that you want in your life, you need to find the leverage to break you out of the gravitational pull of the stuff that you're in. I'll say it again. If you're not happy in any area, any category in your life, you need to get enough leverage to say, you know what, that's it, no more. I'm gonna have a revolt against that thinking system. My strategy for finances, for wealth, for relationships, for health, whatever it is, you need to have it to where it's the no more am I gonna do that. Does that make sense? Yeah. How many of you ever been to Anthony? Again, I don't represent Tony Robbins. I'm a big believer in the product. I'm a product of the product. How many of you have ever been to his program called Date with Destiny? How to show of hands. Awesome. Have you been to UPW? During both of those, there's one segment of it. How many of you have not been, by the way? Go. So spoiler alert, no spoiler alert. But at one point, he helps you get that leverage with yourself to say, no more will I do this. Does that make sense? Here's sometimes the challenge, though. People will go and say, okay, this is too painful, I'm going to avoid that, but they don't know where they do want to go. They don't know where they're in flow. Worse, for many years before I met TJ, I was helping people be incredibly successful in areas that were completely out of their flow. I help people be miserable. That's good marketing for you. Seriously, I help people be successful in something that didn't light up their soul, that didn't light up their heart. And after I was talking to TJ about it, she's like, I learned this amazing thing. I'm like, no, I don't. And we're in Amsterdam. I was teaching there. I'm like, I don't want to hear it because I don't want to contaminate. I'm still coughing up all my information out of my head. Then when I finally sat down and listened to her, I'm like, oh my God, I've been helping people be successful out of their flow. Oh. And I almost did like a recall on past clients of mine going, hey, how's it going? I'm doing okay. Can we talk and find out that they're way out of flow and help them get in the flow? And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I'm thinking I should have listened to TJ earlier. The point being is that it's not about success. Please put this in your notes. The last thing you want to be is incredibly successful out of your flow. Be incredibly successful in something that pulls you away from where your heart is meant to be. Why? Because you may be wealthy, but you will be miserable. Long story short, I started working at Costco. I was the human scanner. And so I'm dating myself here. And I was listening to Tony's tapes, and I snuck my way into his first seminar. And then I bought my next seminar, the next UPW. And I learned all the quality questions. And when people come down my aisle, instead of going, what does my life suck deep? I'm reading off numbers to the person who's keying it in. I started asking better questions. How can I make each person's life a little bit better for having come through my lane? And so people are coming up today and they're like, oh, how many of you know the people where, they kind of go through life going, life just kind of sucks and I'm looking for a reason to kill somebody. How many of you know people like that? Yeah. And so, hey, how great are you doing today? Well, I'm doing great. And they're like, why did I even say that? It's like these Costco mind tricks or Robin's mind tricks will work at some point. And all of a sudden it created a new issue. Because now I had the longest lines at Costco. And these are in the days pre-scanners, which means the lines went down to the freezer section. You know what I'm talking about. And now, what did they do? Instead of rewarding me for making everyone happy, because people were like, which lane did we go to? Let's go to the kid that makes us feel good. Okay. They took me out of the scanner position. And I was working in tires. Well, I can help diagnose any tire issue. And then they put me in batteries. And then they put me in majors where there are computers. Now, back then, if you had a computer, an apple, and a railroad spike and said, Steve, find the computer, they'd be like, well, I eat that. It's going to be a coin toss between these two. I mean, computers, these were the kids that got beat up in school. This was not me at all. And then one day this lady came in. And she said, I've got to find the perfect computer. You have to help me find the perfect computer. And something woke up inside of me. I was presented with what we call a life condition that demanded that my mind capacity grow. I was presented with something that I've got to become more than this. And I remember that day, and I said, ma'am, we're about ready to close here. Come back tomorrow, and I'll help you find the what? Perfect computer. NLP, modeling the language patterns. I went back to the book section, and I got Dan Gukin's DOS for Dummies. DOS 4.1 for those of you that are trying to figure which one. And How Computers Work, a picture guide. And I devoured these books. And the next day, she came in, and she's like, I said, ma'am, I have the perfect computer for you. You need the 386 DX25. So I'm like, holy crap, yes. Yeah. With the turbo button, so you can slow it down for older legacy applications like WordPerfect 5.1. And she was like, oh. And here, this 18-year-old kid was now a technology stud before technology took off. And I got the best meals. I was invited over for dinners and all that and helping people out. And then one day, one of their husbands came in and said, I hear that you're the computer guru. Why, yes, I am. Why? Because I had references for a more empowering identity. Does that make sense? Please put this in your notes. If your identity does not shift before your behavior, your results will not last at all. That's my motivational part of the evening, by the way. I'll say it again. If you change your strategies, great strategies, before your identity shifts, your new strategies are, if you were stock, I'd short you. Nothing personal. It won't work. It won't last. Your identity must shift first. Does that make sense? So if you're going, I'm a loser, but I'm doing these great things, so you're going to go back to losing very quickly. But if you have losing strategies and you're saying, you know what, I'm a millionaire who hasn't cashed his first check, that old adage. Or you know what, I'm an amazing, healthy person, I'm an amazing father, mother, son, whatever. What's going to happen? If you have that as your identity, your behaviors will be congruent with that and they'll feel okay. Otherwise, if you don't, it's going to be, life is so bad, it sucks, and I can blame everyone in this story. I'm doing this, this is too good to be what? True. Which is, if you put on your super Scooby-Doo decoder ears, which is, this is too good to be consistent with my identity. This is too good that I don't deserve this. This is too, and what's going to happen? We're going to self-sabotage, or we're not going to follow through. We're going to give up. This starting to make some sense? Not for you. I mean, for other people. You guys have your stuff together. I get it. Oh dear God. Okay, no. So, your way, whatever. Yeah. So I'll paraphrase. If you shift the behavior, especially for those of you that are therapists, that are coaches, those of you that work in HR, those of you that are parents and have kids, whether they're teenagers, 20agers, 30agers, 40agers, or 50agers, if you shift the behavior before you shift the identity, the new behaviors will not stick. They will not last, including if your client is yourself. So you must shift the identity. So I shift my identity of, I'm this whiz. Everyone was telling me that I was. And so this guy comes in, and, you're the computer guru. Yes, I am. And I need you to network the computers at my office. I said, you know what? I am booked for the next 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, I can help you figure that out. That night, where do you think I went? Book section, computer networks, Novell Networks, LAN manager. And I now had 2 weeks to find out what the heck a computer network is. Why? I created my identity so I could rise to it. Please put this in your notes. The worst thing you can ever do for anybody else is to lower your expectation of them. The worst thing you could ever do to anybody else is to lower your expectation of them. Oh, that's just my son, he's not that bright. That's just my daughter, she just doesn't apply herself. That's just my whatever. That's just my employee. Yeah. No, people love to grow. If you study Tony Robbins and his 6 human needs, one of those needs is growth. If you stunt that need, which is what he calls a need of the human spirit, you're going to be stunting that person's development, stunting their spirit, stunting their soul. Not to get overly dramatic, but you're basically killing their soul. So what you want to do is raise your expectation, raise the life condition, put more demands on them, give them more weights to lift so they start to develop the muscle. I was speaking with somebody earlier today, and I said, listen, you are incredibly emotionally intelligent. You know all this stuff, but you're really weak, in emotional fitness. Fitness is the application. You can be as intelligent as you want, financial intelligence, but if you're losing money or you don't know how to run, you don't know the numbers of your business or how to find, again, the online market, which is a phenomenon, putting courses, putting your knowledge online, great passive income. I was talking with somebody today going, I'm having my best month on YouTube. This guy's got hundreds of thousands of viewers and subscribers and so on. And he's like, I've never had this happen before. But his identity shifted and he's making it true. I say this also because, please write this down, the worst thing you can do is to also lower your expectation of yourself. I'm over 50 now. I'm over 40 now. Well, I'm a single mom. Well, I'm a single dad. Well, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Asian, I'm whatever. Everyone's going to have a story to justify why it's okay to lower our standards. And I don't care what the story is, not to be rude, just to be honest. I don't care what the story is. You're lowering the standard of yourself. Write this down. New line. If I remembered that I couldn't fail, I would blank. You'll fill in that blank tonight when you sleep. If I remembered, presupposition of existence, for those of you that know neurolinguistics, if I remembered that I couldn't fail, I would blank. Tonight you get to focus on your blank when you're blanked out. I realized at that point that there was some value. I took on the identity of I'm some computer whiz kid. There was a virus called the Michelangelo computer virus. Some of you may remember this back in 1991. Yeah. I found it. Just like you find a landmine. It hit me, and my clock was not set correctly, and I found out what happened. I looked at the file that was infected. I looked at the original disk, because back in the floppy days, the big floppy days. Yeah. And I'm like, and so I created a list of files and had to do compare. And I started going to all my new clients now. I started computer counseling services at Bakersfield. Why counseling? I don't know. Go figure. And so next thing you know, I had CBS, NBC, and ABC. I was the whiz kid they were putting on TV, raising the standard. I started my business, my consulting business. The County Office of Education said, hey, we like what you're doing. We're going to get you in. We're going to have you run technology for 53 school districts in the second largest county in the state of California. And at first, my belief system was, that's too big for me. I don't have my degree. I don't have my focusing on everything I didn't have. Versus I'll figure out how to do it. There's no book section for that one, but I'll figure out how to do this. And I did it. The State Department came and said, hey, we'll give you $6 million a year to do the same thing in 6 other counties. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm only earning $30,000 now. $6 million, I didn't realize budget and salaries are two different things. And I did that for the State Department. Guys, I was 19. Give me a break. How many of you remember those days of 19? Yeah, math was not my, trust me, I had the paperwork to prove I was not the sharpest tool in the shed in school. And so here, I was doing this and then something happened. Another event happened. I was always going to the hospital with bronchial pneumonia. There's this thing called valley fever. It's cocci, some long Latin thing of basically, there's a virus that's in the dust in the Central Valley that if you weren't born and raised there, you get to go to the hospital about 3 or 4 times a year coughing up blood in small animals. And they said, I don't care how much you're making. I had the brand new Camaro with the LT1 engine, all this stuff I thought I wanted. They said, you got to get out of Dodge. And then this guy named Chuck Schwab found out about me and said, hey, come on up and we want to have you join our engineering group. I'm like, okay. And I go up to San Francisco. And a week before I got there, the entire engineering division quit to go do a .com. So I get there and I'm the only person in engineering for 35,000 people. Oh, and I didn't even know where to sit. My boss was no longer in existence. I got to the floor and I found I'm sure you can turn off the lights here. There's one light that stays on for the security, for the fire safety kind of OSHA thing. I sat on that desk because I didn't know where the light switches were. And I was waiting there at the effect to get fired. Until one day, and of course I'm listening to Tony's tapes back in the day, and I'm like, wait a second. Act as if. Have a better identity for myself. I watched, and I will never, again, for those of you recording, hit pause for a second. There was a movie called The Secret of My Success with Michael J. Fox. That was my Bible. That was the equivalent of Dan Guggenstoss for Dummies. Act as if. And so, of course, I had this Robin's like suspenders on, and he was my only role model that I had, for goodness sakes. I just didn't have the height there. And I went around and I said, hey, my name's Steve Linder, and I'm the head of engineering, which is true. I was the only person in engineering. And I looked at, what do you like? What do you hate? Basically, I didn't know it back then. I'm looking, what don't you like, so I know what to avoid, and what do you like? What's your compelling future? The power of questions is absolutely key. Whether you're the leader, how many of you are a manager in some business profession? I'm not going to say it sucks to be you, but you may want to reconsider your job title. Managers manage what is. Leaders lead people in a direction to something else. So how many of you are a manager? Cricket. Good. What you want to do is look at how do you lead people linguistically, using what I call directionalized language patterns. Next thing you know, Chuck's on CNBC going, we're going to go and have a first online brokerage, and this guy's going to be the guy to do it. As I'm like, it's like networking computers. It's like finding out what a computer is. What? You want to take on more in life that's uncomfortable. If you live in that comfort zone, please put this in your notes. Comfort is like crack. It kills. And yet, how many of you, honestly, up until maybe that moment now, you've been you've been working to live a comfortable life? Yeah, it'll kill your drive. It'll kill your drive. It'll kill your ambition. It'll kill your hunger. Now, we're not talking financial. It could be what's your comfort in health, in your relationships, in your wealth, in your leadership, your spirituality, whatever that is. You want to look at what's that next thing that I can be hungry for, so that you have that need for growth that's contributing. And I did well with this. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I started taking over their operations group, and I thought, this is too big. I had my story for why I wasn't growing. I'm going to go to a smaller company. There's a little company called Montgomery Securities down the street. There's 3,500 people there. 35,000 to 3,500. Good call. I'll be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. I get there. Nations Bank bought us about a week and a half later. We're now at 150,000 people. And my team was looking at, oh my God, they're going to come over because we have a better technology implementation. They're going to dominate us. I'm like, oh, we're going to be at the effect? Okay, how's that working for you? I said, what if we can understand their model of the world first? What if we can enter their, please put this in your notes. If you want to influence somebody, influencing is the ability to enter their model of the world, understand their model of the world, appreciate their model of the world, and not judging it. I've spent time in communities that have been in crisis. And a few years back, I was in a community where, again, it was a horrible atrocity, which unfortunately many of you may know pretty well, occurred there. And I said, I'm not here to judge this guy. The behavior is obviously atrocious. But nobody could figure out why he did it. I said, because none of you, you're so busy judging, you're not understanding. You need to enter the model of the world. And I walked, a bunch of my students and a bunch of the therapists through, here's what happened. We brought in teachers that were this guy's teachers. And I said, let me guess, he was behaving this way in school. And they're looking like, who have you talked to? We haven't told anybody. That's exactly what was happening. I said, now we understand how it happened. We're not here to pass judgment one way or another on the person. We're looking at the behavior. Does that make sense? So we can also spot that behavior in others going forward. Well, for me, I told my guys back then, I'm like, listen, if we're going to make them wrong before we even understand what they're doing, we're the ones that are basically not smart here. We need to get curious. Please put this in your notes. Instead of getting angry, especially if you're a leader, instead of getting angry, get curious. When my team does something, I used to be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Now it's hey, so what caused that? 9 times out of 10, my team has a better idea than I had. Who am I to judge them? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you want to get curious, because otherwise you're going to kill your innovation. You're going to make people scared to innovate. That's another key part. And so I'm like, okay, we can do this, but now how do we go? How do we make this even better? And we looked at, as what Tony talks about, constant and never-ending improvement. Never rest, write this down, never rest on your laurels. Never be satisfied with success. Never be satisfied with comfort. You always got to be looking at what's the next thing. One of the key parts I always had on my resume, and feel free to model this, especially if you're a consultant, my key, we'll call it byline, is the ability to anticipate and solve problems before those problems become real. I'll say it again so you can write it down or have it tattooed on your arm. That's totally cool. The ability to anticipate and solve problems before those problems become real. That's led to, again, my rate when I work with clients, corporate clients, individual clients is $2,000 an hour. I never go on sale. And they're getting the better part of the deal. I just got a call, I was over in, Bahamas yesterday, and I get a call, and it's from a big national company saying, we're having a major issue down in Puerto Rico, and with the media and with these carriers, we need you to come help us. And for me, it's like, great, no problem at all. Totally different industry. Again, I'm a little bit sensitive to the insurance industry. And that said, it's also I'm going to look at it. If it's to help people, I'm there. If you're going to somehow try to screw people, call this other number. And it'll be like, a local support line or something. I don't know. Not me. Point being is, I started to look at, I need to be very clear on what I want, why I want it, and how to bring my team there. And I got to the point where it's like, okay, this is good. And then we went and we bought Bank of America. And we kept their name. Now I was 26 years old, head of global engineering for Bank of America worldwide, $500,000 salary, houses, cars, and all that. I was very successful and completely unfulfilled. I found myself playing hooky. I was spending 22 weeks of vacation a year. Guess where? Some of you may remember these days. Over in Robbins Land.
Oh, yeah.
I was out of my flow, back to what TJ was saying, I was totally out of my flow in the business world. Remember, why did I first get into technology? To help the lady who had to find the perfect computer. I wanted to help people. Computer counseling. I didn't click in. Here I was, very successful, out of my flow, and it was miserable. How many of you can kind of relate, whether you like to admit it or not? Mm-hmm. And it was honestly, Robin, some of you may remember me back then. Some of the trainers were like, Dennis is like, I used Robbins like a drug, and I can own that. I used it like a drug. I hated my job, but the worst thing was I was rewarded by it, by what I thought was important. And I got to the point where, is this all there is? And then I saw something that reawoken the passion, the why, the mission. I saw people were getting screwed over by the mutual fund industry. And many people don't know that if you buy a mutual fund outside of a tax-sheltered account, you don't even sell it, but the fund manager's flipping it, you will get a tax bill at the end of the year. Yes. And I saw moms and dads and people on fixed incomes getting screwed over, and something woke up. There was a calling. You all have that calling, whether you squelch it or not. And I realized, this isn't right. We need to find a way on how we can make your own mutual fund. So you control what's inside of it. And maybe holdings in Philip Morris, and your Aunt Sally died of smoking, of lung cancer or whatever, and I don't want to, you can't call your fund manager and say, listen, I need you to dump Philip Morris. They're going to be like, no, you're kind of screwed. So what did I do? I went and I said, we have to do this, and I talked to some of the gray hairs on Wall Street back before I now had gray hair. Back in those days, I was putting baby powder on my comb, water, and giving myself gray hair because nobody knew how young I was. Nowadays, it's almost a different story. And I was just going like, we've got to be able to find a way to do it. And they said, well, young man, Wall Street's been trying for 85 years. Billions of dollars. It's impossible. That was their own BS, their own belief system. And we asked ourselves a better question. I said, imagine if we did it. If we already did it, so it's called a temporal marker. Imagine if we already did it. Let's look at the structure of how did we do that with the linguistic presupposition of having accomplished it. We locked ourselves in a conference room for 7 days. We came up with it. If you've been to a UPW, you hear Tony tell my story at the end. I sold it to E-Trade 7 months later for $14 million. I am still not the sharpest tool in the shed. I just know how to ask better questions, how to think differently, how to not take on other people's belief systems. When something happens in your world, where the loss of a loved one, a family member, say, oh, your life is over now, and life will never go back to whatever it is, that could be true. It also could be, hey, the way for me to honor my mother, I lost my father last May. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, how was the relationship? Well, it was rocky for many years, but I got to spend the last 7 days with them, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I copped up to so many things I did as a kid. My dad was, with the breaths that he had, he was also laughing his tail off. I was like, Dad, we broke into a missile silo that was abandoned. The lock broke when it hit the chain cutters. I don't know what happened. And my dad, as an avionics guy, he's like, really? And so I'm walking him through. It was so cool. And the funny thing is, I could focus on the years where we hadn't really talked and beat myself up over it and felt guilty about it. Who's that going to serve? My own need for connection, maybe. But looking at, I walked him through, some of you know the temporal dynamics process that I created to help with PTSD and things like that. I walked him through that and helped him clear so much stuff out of his life that again, I didn't have to know what it was. If you know the process, it's a very private process. I'm just telling him a story. And his unconscious mind is doing all the work behind. I'm watching all the calibration and so on, what's going on in his body. And I looked at it going, this is where I'm living what I'm meant to do. Going back again to helping people. After I sold my company, I brought on, I started their 529 education plans, IPOs, all this kid, again, who was fired from Sizzler. And I realized that life was more than money. Most people, they want money. Why? Because they want to buy stuff. I'm using a polite word there, stuff. Why? Because they think that stuff is going to make them feel good. As TJ was saying, when you're doing what you love, when you feel good, just doing what you do, what's part of your mission, whatever it is, you do it well and you find a way to scale it and monetize it, what's going to happen? You get to live the life that you want, and it's effortless. You're in flow. And if it adds value, what's going to happen? You'll never have to want again. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But how do we do that, though? Turn to your neighbor and go, I don't know. Turn to your neighbor back and say, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, why? Why do most people not get the results that they want? One reason.
Thinking.
They're what?
They don't know what they want.
Unresourceful? Yeah, when you're unresourceful, are the resources there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. But if I'm focusing over here and all the resources over there, I'm literally deleting them. Because what happens is, that's me.
Wow.
Okay, fine. Hold on. Now, I got my hair cut this morning in Miami, and I saw the pictures on the wall, like they'll know what to do, and I looked at it going, I got a Miami haircut. This is cool. So the events come into our world, the events happen in our world. Whether it's your first kiss, whether it's your first promotion, your first child, the loss of somebody or something. These events come in your nervous system through our senses of what we see visually, what we hear auditorily, what we feel kinesthetically, what we smell olfactorily, and what we taste gustatorily. But these events come in at a very high rate of speed. The estimates are, some people say it's 2 million bits per second. Some people say 4 million bits per second. I just look at it, it's a lot. So we'll say between 2 to 4 million bits per second. It comes into our nervous system and forms what we call our IR, our internal representation of the outside world, or our internal representation of the outside world. However, our IR can only process information at the rate of 134 bits per second. If I were to give you, let's say, toothpicks, 2 to 4 million toothpicks every second, could you handle that? No, it'd be overwhelming. If I were to toss you probably a third of a box of toothpicks, 134 bits per second, could you handle that? Yeah, there's a box. There's another box. You can handle it. It'd be annoying after a while, granted, but you can handle that though. So what happens? In order to process, in order to function, our nervous system, technically our unconscious mind, has to delete, distort, and generalize the information to come in to basically whittle it down. It's like the feeling in your right big toe. Do you feel it? Yeah. Was it there a moment ago? Yes, yeah. You're like, no, your toe was there, I promise you. But what happens? Your nervous system's like, it's there, it's always been there, unless it's a new one, that it deletes that sensory input because it's not relevant to you. It's nothing unique about it. But you haven't even thought about your left big toe, and now you are. Or the feeling of your butt in your chair. It's probably been sore for a while there. And notice, we're using language to determine what you are deleting. That makes sense? How many of you have ever made the mistake of getting the hotel room next to, I was in my hotel tonight, how many of you ever made the mistake of getting the hotel room next to the newlyweds, or next to the elevator?
Yeah.
And all night long you hear bump, 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 bump. And the elevator is even noisier, right? Now, does it keep you up all night? Unless you're doing that. But I mean, does it keep you up all night, or do you eventually what? You eventually fall asleep. Why? Because you what? Deleted it. Because you eventually deleted it. So the nervous system has a built-in way on how to filter all of this information down to something that's manageable. Now, this IR, again, the internal representation, impacts what's called your state. So if I go into a situation, if I'm looking for people who are going to screw me over and be bad people and so on, well, number one, I wouldn't be in this room for sure. But if I were to go somewhere, I could probably find that if that's what I'm looking for, especially if I think I'm that kind of person as well, I'm going to notice that. True? Mm-hmm. But what if you go in with the identity and I'm going to look for what's great in the world. I'm curious about what's somebody doing. How is somebody smarter than I am? What's the gift that somebody else has here that I don't know? What if you have that running through your IR? The question determines what we focus on. What if I had that running? Am I going to notice something differently? Yeah. Why would, let's say, why would Matt, again, and by the way, are we glad that we're here in this room? Oh, yeah. So again, if you guys can thank tonight, Matt and his team for giving us the gift of this room, that'd be huge. Why would Matt, pick an ugly orange silk tree to have in a beautiful room like this? Why would he do it? Anybody? Why would he pick an ugly orange silk tree?
He liked it.
What?
He liked it.
Because he liked it. Colorblind maybe, but he liked it, right? Would you pick the same tree though?
I didn't see it.
Neither did I. But what's happened though? I asked a question that was baseless from a quantum physics perspective. It was a question that had no base in reality. True?
Right.
Now, we came up with an answer. Kind of like when people ask, why am I such an idiot? It may be totally not true, but we'll come up with an answer. Your unconscious mind. Please put this in your notes. The questions you ask yourself are so important because your questions program your unconscious mind. I'll say it again. The questions you ask yourself are so important because your questions program your unconscious mind. So if you're going through, why do I always attract all the bad guys? Why aren't I good in business? Why am I such a loser? Why do I do this? Because your unconscious mind's going to go, because you're an idiot. Even if it's not true. You always have to have an answer. The questions that we ask ourselves determine what? How we feel. The questions that we ask ourselves technically determine, and what was your first name again? Janine. The questions asked help what we focus on. I asked her a question about something, and she focused on it, even though it wasn't there. So questions lead to the focus. What we focus on, if I looked at, hey, why are you such a loser? Where have you screwed up in life? These are motivational questions here, clearly. What's going to happen? You're going to start focusing on all this crap. If I ask questions over here, it's going to make me feel bad. True? Yeah. That's why a lot of times many traditional mental health models are, so tell me, what's wrong? Now, it's not being a smart ass going, hey, what's right? I ask, hey, what's going on? I'm never going to ask, by the way, how many of you want to be a coach? You are a coach or a therapist, or you're in a leadership position, you have kids, you interact with other human beings, somebody, okay? The worst question you could ever ask is why? Why is always going to give you a story. You want to ask what's going on, or hey, so how did that happen? How did you do that? Or how did they do that? How did this situation come about? Because then you're focusing now on the structure, not a story. And what you focus on, by the way, you obviously, you feel. And what you feel, that's your life. How many of you have ever lost somebody? How many of you ever lost somebody? And you sometimes you may focus on loss. You know, your great Aunt Sally died. And you're like, oh my gosh, I miss her so much. And you're focusing on everything. Well, she could have been here with us right now, and she could have been here for this. How many of you have ever done that before? Now, here's the question. Does that honor Aunt Sally? No. Aunt Sally, if you have, like, you know, relatives that have passed like I have, that are sometimes, shall we say, feisty. They're from New York, let's just say. Or snowbirds. Now, what would happen? If Aunt Sally's up there going, why the heck are they doing that? Focus, asking questions, dumb questions about crap in the past. If it makes them feel bad, why would you keep on doing it? Why not look at, hey, what do you love about Aunt Sally? What were some of your best memories about Aunt Sally? What were some of the things? Where did she inspire you? Where was she? How many of you have had a coach in life where they pushed you? And at the time, what's the term? Sucked. And you almost want to, like, you know, I'd rather have a root canal through the eye socket than listen to them anymore. But what happened? They pushed you so that you grew. And if you focus on that, go, where have I been pushed? Where have I been pushed beyond my boundaries of what I thought I could ever do? I remember this time and this time. What's going to happen? You're going to start to get more references for these times, and your nervous system's going to go like, wow, I can actually accomplish a lot of things when I really put my mind to it or put my heart to it. Does that make sense? Coming back full circle to this. If we know that our IR, internal representation, determines our state, we also need to remember that our state is also determined by our physiology, how we use our body, how we sleep, the drugs that we take, whether it's food, legal drugs, hopefully not illegal drugs, but hey, it's what states don't have illegal drugs nowadays? You notice that all of these go together to form our state. Our state leads to our what? Our actions, or our behavior, which leads to our what?
Results.
Our results. So, do you think people go through life going, oh my gosh, I'm not getting the results that I want in life? Why? Well, because I'm not taking the right actions or the right behaviors. I have crappy marketing models, zero follow-up sequences. Why? Well, because I don't think we can really do it. I'm in a pretty doubtful state about my business or about my marriage or about my kids, about my wealth, about my finances, whatever it is. Why? Well, probably because I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm watching, reruns of Jerry Springer and Ricky Lake together, which is enough to put anyone into an early grave. Oh, and by the way, my IR totally whacked. Why? Well, all my weaknesses, both real and imagined in my own mind, I make bigger and worse than they ever been. And all my strengths and all my gifts, well, I'm going to focus on all this crap over here. That's what's going on for me. Do you think they ever come to you with that level of clarity? No. They say, I don't like the results that I'm getting. Do something to it. I want to be at the effect. Give me a bottle. Give me a pill. Give me something. If I have a negative result here, give me a plus 500 so that I can be at the effect instead of being a cause. Whether you want to start a business, but they were talking about multi-level marketing and so on. A lot of people say, oh, multi-level marketing, I don't want to have 50 gallons of dish soap in my garage anymore. How many of you ever had that feeling about it? Be honest. Yeah, me too. And yet the funny thing is the best multi-level marketing companies are the ones that quite honestly focus on how do we empower our team to empower our customers. If more of corporate America were focused not on having your employees kissing the office doorknob, and instead of focusing, how do we empower the best of our employees? How do we help them raise their own standards? How do we reward them? How do we help them find their flow? How do we help them understand that if they're not getting the results, instead of making them wrong for it, labeling them, disciplining them, top grading, bottom grading, what we need to do is understand, hey, so that assignment, how did you interpret that? What did that mean for you? We get curious instead of getting angry. Yes, I'm starting to tie all the different pieces together now. We start looking at it going, hey, if they're not in a good state, physiology, what's happening? When I first started my company, I went all these office lights, I went and I changed them out to full spectrum daylight bulbs. Why? Because all the research showed that it helps people physiologically feel better. I did that. I noticed an immediate bump. People actually stayed longer. They weren't, instead of 5 o'clock, there's a thing of dust and everyone's gone. Everyone's staying. We would have music. We would cater in good food. Ran the numbers on it. It was cheaper to provide good food than have them go out and get crappy food and come back with food coma. Seriously, I mean, it's not rocket science. Obviously, I figured it out. So the point being, again, I am no smarter than you. I put my underwear on the same way you guys do. What I realized, you guys clearly have something wrong with you. You don't do it the right way. But anyway, the point being is I realized I went upstream to see what the problem was. Instead of saying, hey, there's something bad floating down the stream, let's fish it out of the water. Let's go find out how the crap is getting in the water. Please put this in our notes. Most of the crap that we experience is not real. It's not the events. Most of the crap we experience, we create in our IR. Who here likes roller coasters by show of hands? Awesome. I'm not hanging out with you, just telling you right off the bat. Who here doesn't like roller coasters? Yes. Ow. Now, if we're both on the same roller coaster, how can we have such a different experience? Well, it's based on our beliefs, based on our values, based on our rules. I have a rule of I must not put myself in situations where I'm likely going to die or fall upside down or things like that. The point being is that we can both have the same event, but a very different experience of it. If you think your clients think the same way you do about your product or your offering, you're going to be for a world of education. What you need to do is you need to start understanding, how do my clients think? How do they value things? Where is my client on the life cycle? There's what I call the big tick. So imagine if, so I was going to give you one hell of a paper cut there. Sorry about that, Vicky. So imagine, but people are like, oh, holy crap, he's doing math on a Monday. No, it's okay. Trust me, I would not be the person to do math here. Let's say on this big tick, we have what I call segment A, point B, segment C, point D, segment E, point F, segment G, point H, and then kind of the repeat of A. How many of you, or honestly, I'll describe each section here, how many of you are at a point in life where your life conditions are able to be met with your mind capacities, with your thinking system, where life's going okay right now? I'm not in any pain, I'm not having a lot of pleasure, but life's cool. How many of you have ever been there before? How many of you are there right now in some area of your life, if you were honest with yourself? Awesome. How many of you are there financially or in business, by show of hands? Awesome. This is also known as the danger zone, I'm just telling you. Because there's no drive. It's like cracking at what? It kills you. Yes, it's not good. What about at point B? This is where you get the Scooby-Doo Ruh-Roh, or Astro. That was more Astro than Scooby. Sorry about that. What's been working isn't going to work anymore. Our business model isn't going to work anymore. YouTube is changing its rules. Facebook, we did Facebook advertising. How could Facebook? I see some eyes. Are you pissed off about the Facebook thing?
No, I'm just.
Or it makes sense?
I don't do Facebook.
Okay. Yeah. My mom calls it book face. It's okay. So imagine, though, you get to the point where what's been working up until now shifts and stops. First thing they didn't do was what I had on the resume, which was what? Anticipate and solve problems before the problems happen. You need to know that road ahead. So this is where people go. When people go out of business, or when there's a downturn in the economy and they go out of business, with no disrespect if any of you that was you didn't plan for it. You didn't have a contingency plan. You were at the effect of it. The economy's good, therefore I'm good, versus I'm amazing, whether the economy does well or doesn't do well. It's like in stocks. When I teach people how to read stock charts. Remember, I designed all the trading systems for numerous firms. In 20 years of Tony, I put them together into what I call market psychology. And I would train people how to understand the stock market and have a strategy when the market goes up, how to have them going down. And I have students of mine that are very disciplined. They're like, yeah, we're kind of bored, but we're doing about 20, 30% per month right now. That's not too bad. And I say, do it on paper. I said, I want you to doubt everything that I say. Do it on paper so you get your own references. Why? Because life will never always keep on going up. It'll never keep on going down. You're going to have these zigzags, these undulations that happen in life. At point B, this is where you realize, uh-oh. At point C is where people go into what they consider incredible amounts of pain. Turn to your neighbor and go, oh. This is where it seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. How many of you have ever been through that? And if you don't raise your hand, you're lying. How many of you are there right now, by show of hands? If you're honest, I'm not going to call on you. It's okay. Yes, you, no, I'm just kidding. Now, this is where your strategies here, what made you win to this point, those same strategies not only will not help you win, they will actually help cause you to fail. How many of you are wearing diapers still from when you were a kid? Little huggies. No. Now, there may be another time in the future where that may be appropriate again. But those strategies, trust me, it was good to have diapers when you were a kid for the sake of your parents and the carpet cleaners. Or actually, they wouldn't want you to have it, but you get the idea. But at some point, you have to adapt your strategy as the life conditions demand. That making sense so far for you?
Yes.
At a certain point, though, it gets into so much pain, you get to a point where it cannot get any worse than this. And this is where you ask yourself the question, is this who I am? You get so, what's the term, clinically speaking, pissed off, that you go, no more. If you've been to a Robbins event, Tony does a great job of helping people understand, get them to a point in their own psychology of not like, oh, I shouldn't do this. Oh, hell no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I got to stop this financially, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, to where they say, and he says, is this who you are? No. What are you about? He asks questions. I don't even think he knows that he does this, but he's so freaking brilliant, he's doing it automatically. Who are you? What are you about? Reminding people about their compelling future, reminding them about who they are, what drives them, where their flow is. Starting to make some sense? And so this is where then people go, well, it's too far. Well, if I asked, we're on the second floor here, imagine there was a third floor. If I said, could you go from right here to the next floor with one step without ripping major muscle groups, and there was no elevator? No. Well, can you step this far? This far? Great. So how high could you go then? To the? No. Further beyond that, to the 4th, 5th, and 6th. I say this because for those of you that are coaches or leaders of business, instead of setting very high, audacious goals, especially that are performance or bonus driven, you say, okay, let's get the first steps in place. Make them very easy to win. Get them, build momentum, build references. And then this is where they grow. And where do they stop and fail? Usually right about here. Why? Because if this is your identity, deviating from your identity down causes pain. Deviating up here causes, for many people, if your identity, remember what I said earlier, if your identity doesn't shift first, if you perform better than how you define yourself, your nervous system goes, I feel too good. This is too good to be truly consistent with my identity, and will self-sabotage. How many of you know other people that have ever done that before? Turn to your neighbor and go, not you. Yeah. So this is why you need to get clear about whatever this is for you first, so your behaviors will move and be more consistent for that. When you say, this is who I am, this is the amount of wealth I want, or love I want, or health, or whatever it is, that you instantly realize where I am right now sucks. I'm not going to do this anymore. And you make it so bad for yourself that your nervous system gets that charge of like a shock collar on a dog type of deal that, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, all of a sudden, you'll start moving. But most people, they get out of the pain. There's so much energy. I'll do anything. They get up. Oh, I'm what? Comfortable again, which is like what? It what?
Kills.
It kills. Turn to your neighbor and go, I knew I sat next to the smart one. So you notice here that this is where most people sabotage. When I train coaches, how many of you are a coach in some, whether part of an organization, your own coaching, whatever, this is where you'll start to lose people. Physical fitness trainers, they lose people here. Oh, I've got the health that I want. Well, the absence of sickness does not equal health. Does that make sense? If you're a chiropractor, they know that inside and out. So what do? You have to keep on reminding about what is this compelling future? What is this for you? To the point where then, same thing. Starting to go beyond your identity, you need the same for easy to accomplish steps to build that momentum to keep you moving forward. If you've ever heard of a guy named Tim Draper, he's helped start PayPal, Tesla, and so on. I go down about every quarter or so and I speak at what's called Draper University, which is basically a university for entrepreneurs. And we'll bring in entrepreneurs and CEOs from all around the world, from the UAE, from Korea and South Korea, from everywhere. And I'll literally walk them through this, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I understand. We've been so focusing on avoiding this, we go away. It's like a bug to a light, where we're burning ourselves, we'll go away to where we're what? Comfort. but they still are focusing, I don't want this, and they live very busy, buggy lives. Let's say if this is the flame, this is what we don't want, and they spend all their time avoiding, and they do this from MLM to MLM to MLM, job to job to job, relationship to relationship, and they get exhausted. But am I going anywhere? No. Anything below this is what we call, technically called oblique change. We'll just call it change. You're changing. It's a function of time. Change takes no intellect. It's just time. But when you start to go beyond, this is where you have true what? Progress. This is where you start to go beyond how you've defined yourself from your old. This is, for many people, this is incredibly scary. But it's also incredibly rewarding, incredibly fulfilling. Why? Because you start to meet more of your needs for growth. If you can help bring other people with you, that's why I think momentum groups like this are so valuable. I have our grads, they meet all around the world. I was in London one time, and I was going to go speak with Dr. Jones, a good colleague of mine. And I get to London, we're going to go to Southampton, and I heard through the rumor mill that some of our grads were getting together a few blocks away at a library. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Because again, I've trained thousands of people around the world, so I go down there and they have these little like accordion door type of things. And she teaches was there. She's like, I remember that. And I looked through and I was watching them teaching my content. Because I said, keep the skills sharp. Strengthen that wiring over and over again. I mean, it was, I'm not saying I was losing my stuff at that moment, but it was like, look at that, it's so cool. And then I opened the thing, and of course I freak everybody out at that point. And the point being is that they started to better themselves that had nothing to do with me. Just like when the gentleman earlier was talking about how to take your content or your unique gift, your unique knowledge that's unique to you, putting that online in a way that if you do it just for the money, you might want to refocus. But if you look at it going, I want to make a difference, and I want to make it sustainable, that's where the real value is. At that point, you're now getting past this F, and you're looking in G where I'm getting better and better and better, and I'm becoming more consistent with my what? My new identity. Not realizing, of course, that, and most people, they get to the top going, I can't, how many of you ever accomplished something? You're like, how the heck did I do that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I found the strength to do that. Not realizing that, guess what?
Yeah.
It's going to happen again. You're going to have a higher quality problem. Here I was, I had the problem of why am I such a loser? Ask better questions. Now the solution back when I was at Costco, my solution to have a better experience created a new problem because now I had the longest lines. Please put this in your notes. The solutions you're seeking will most likely cause new problems for you. The solutions that you're seeking will most likely cause more problems. So much for my future in motivational speaking. Right? What you want is going to screw you up. No. But what you realize, though, is you need to tap into the best parts of yourself. You see, we all have. How many of you like you were like, quote normal, like you are just who you are. There's no multiple personalities or anything like that. How many of you have multiple personalities? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Not judging, but no, we all do. Why? Because at some point, that was loud. At some point, there's that part of us, we'll enumerate it here as level 1,